And he was out in the circle. They had cleared the parking lot for him to speak to us baby boomers and their parents at that time. And I remember I was only maybe 15 feet away from him when he came close to the crowd in the front shaking hands. And in a loud voice, in all my power, I said, Mr. Kennedy, our whole family is voting for you, and I am too. And he heard that, and he asked the crowd to open the way for me to come up to him. And he reached out his hand to me, and he said, thank you, little girl, for your support, and thank your parents also for their vote. And he shook my hand, and I was so happy. I had told him, I know you're going to be our president.
We would take the city bus from Casa View to downtown every day. And when the elections were coming up for President Kennedy, my sister Judy and I would take polls of everybody on the bus as to who they were going to vote for. You know, campaign for President Kennedy, would send out leaflet, hand out leaflets for him, and we both had the attitude that his youthfulness and his direct caring about people, the way he expressed it, was one of the most wonderful things that we could see happening in society.
In 1960, I was a student, a senior at Baylor University, and there was a great deal of animosity and prejudices coming out about Kennedy, particularly from Baptists who felt like that he would bring the Vatican to the White House. And as a Catholic, he would do that. And so we had Harry Truman came on a stop to Waco to speak at the Heart of Texas Coliseum and to tell his fellow Baptists, you can vote for JFK. He will not bring the Vatican to the White House. You can trust him. And so as a member of the Young Democrats, I was out in the parking lot and we were putting stickers on all the cars that came. The stickers were Kennedy, Johnson, for president and vice president. Well, Truman gave a wonderful talk that night, as only Harry S. Truman could do. And when the people got out of the speech, they came out to their cars, and when they saw the stickers, many of them were very upset because they said, we didn't come to support JFK, we came to hear Harry Truman speak. And so that was my recollections of the election of 1960.
Kennedy came to my home county, to Katanning, on a campaign swing, and so we walked into town to see him, and they had a speaker's platform built in the main street, and he came sweeping in a convertible, and he was just, he just had this tremendous magnetism, and just so, it kind of shone, and I'm not a sentimental person and easily swayed, but I never saw anybody who was so vibrantly alive. And so he came in and he waved, and I said every Republican woman in the county was ready to just jump in that car with him, never mind about my registration, my voter's registration. So he got up and started to speak, and he said, well, I guess there are a few Republicans around, and of course he won everybody over. He didn't win the county. When it came time to vote, of course people reverted to their old habits, but he really charmed everybody that day.
My roommate, Craig McKee, at Iowa, was from Chicago, and he was a gung-ho Democrat. And Kennedy and his wife were coming for the Iowa-Notre Dame game in the fall of 1959. And Craig said, you've got to get up and come with me to go meet the senator. And I said, all right, I'd do that, but I had just come back as a young Republican delegate for Nixon to the Iowa convention. So I went and that morning there was just a torrential rainstorm, and there weren't many people there, maybe 30 or 40, maybe less. and JFK and his wife Jackie were both there. And they said they were immediately charming. They both said, take off your wet stuff, come and sit on the stage with us. And they had little coffee cups that said Coffee with Kennedy. And we sat on the stage, drank coffee, and talked to the two of them for over an hour. And all of us, because it was such a personal encounter, were sort of mesmerized. So I would say I was personally converted by JFK and Jackie into the Democratic Party.
As a freshman in college, that was the year of the election, and that was the first political involvement I ever had, was doing a little bit of Kennedy for President work. And actually, I still remember, and wish I still had it, but I had a boater hat that was with a red, white, and blue ribbon that said Kennedy for President, and I was so proud of that. But that was the first time I really got interested. And probably his youth and vigor may have been part of it, but I was very interested.
We went to shopping centers, and we carried political literature, and I shook hands with people and handed them something, or I would go up and we would walk and maybe leave it on their windshield under the windshield wiper, but tried to have a lot of personal contact, because I think eye to eye and person to person is certainly more effective than a piece of paper underneath your windshield wiper. And so Nick Hammond and several other of us who really did a lot of walking. I was skinnier in those days because I walked so much. There was an aura about him, and the youthfulness of his family and his youth that seemed to communicate to me a hope for the future. I think a lot of people had that kind of hope. It was that's what was so sad about the entire assassination event, was that it seemed to crush out any sort of naive belief in goodness of government in our country anymore.